9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It's FPC Radio Live, and if you can't tell by now, it's an extremely intense episode of FPC Radio Live because, my co-host has obviously come very much prepared to do battle with anything and everything that comes across our path. So I'm not going to waste any time. I don't want to anger Sensei Debate over there. So I'm going to say a big hearty hello, and remember, Mike, always
sweep the leg.
Absolutely. La, la, la. Mercy is for the weak.
That's right.
Tears on the street in competition. A man confronts you, Ian. He is the enemy. An enemy deserves no mercy. What is the problem, Mr. Glendon?
You know, I have no doubt in my mind that you did not even look that up. You just knew it right off the top of your head. And also
definitely in the mental archives for, the emphasis on mental. But that one's memorized. It's been memorized for quite some time, long before Cobra Kai came out. That's memorization.
I was going to say, and when we were getting ready to do the show, and you had popped on, there was a bit of a delay, but you were frozen. But I could see the headband, so I knew something big was going to happen today. And
people have spoken; they wanted the headband.
Well, I mean, they wanted the headband and the gi, but we'll work up to it. We'll work up to that. That'll be a big time reveal show or whatever. But I love it, by the way. I love it. And folks, I assure you, he's owned that headband for a very long time. This is not a new thing. I'm sure he has a closet full of them, actually. That's my guess, and I'm sticking to it. Am I right?
One for every day of the year, bud.
There you go. I've always had a dream, Mike, and this kind of puts you into my mind a little bit. I've always had a dream of having a brand new pair of socks every single day of the year. And when I've been thinking about this for 10, 15 years, easily, every single day of the year, putting on a brand new pair of socks. How great do you think that would be?
I would like that for the socks. What about a brand new pair of underwear for every day of the week?
Well, I mean, okay, now you're getting a little ridiculous here. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, I think the comfort starts at your feet. Okay, you put a fresh, brand new pair of socks on, you feel like $1 million. And I've actually gone as far as researching the cost per day of what it would take, and it's on my bucket list, my friend. I think 1 year. Maybe it'd be 2024, maybe the year that we run for office. Every single day of the year, brand new pair of socks. I think that's going to happen.
I think it's a pretty good idea. It's a very lofty goal for sure, but one that definitely has merit. You're onto something there. Life just seems to go better when you're wearing comfortable shoes. So why not? Why not make the feet a focal point? You think of some of the greatest thinkers of our time. For example, I love quoting Aristotle. Aristotle, wore sandals. Come on. There you go. Confucius wore tongs. It's like, very, very, Einstein wore penny loafers. It's like, it's very, I think we're onto something here. Let's flesh this out a little bit.
I'm on something.
My inner Cliff Clayton from Cheers this morning, folks.
I was, like I said, I've been thinking about this for years, and I found it funny when you said you like to quote Aristotle. I'm thinking, all right, well, he likes to quote Aristotle and Rodney Dangerfield. That's quite the spectrum there. That's your range where you're coming from here.
There's a lot of many talents. There's a lot of subtle layers to my dementia. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And what we're going to do here is we're going to break them all down on Full Press Coverage Radio. It's going to be like a live therapy session, Mike. We're going to get into your psyche, okay? And we're going to dig in there. We're going to find out what it is all about. No, that would be something. Maybe get a live therapy session. That'll be one of the shows. That's a show. There's a show. But no, we actually do have stuff to talk about today because we mentioned yesterday that the NFL obviously is planning on releasing the schedule today. However, as is the case every year, I mean, these things start to get leaked to the point where by the time the actual show starts tonight, we're going to know most of the schedule. And it's just going to be a fluff hour or two or however long the show is. I don't even know. I don't know if you know if it's just 8 to 9 o'clock or 8 to 12 o'clock. Either way, the NFL can make this last an hour or 4 hours. They're really great at that. They can drag this out forever. But we do know some key games, or at least rumored, quote unquote. Not all of them are necessarily confirmed, but that's just part of the process. We do know the very first game of the season. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we talked about this a little bit yesterday.
We did.
And I put that. See that we're ahead of the curve there, Mike. We're trendy. We're topical, really.
Right. Yep. Yep. Our sources gave us the information.
Yes,
sources with the Z.
That's right.
Got to put the Z in
That's
there.
right. Z.
That means you're serious. That means, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very serious. Did you say serious? Or did you just skip there? Because I thought maybe
absolutely, yeah. Everything. Replace everything with a Z.
Okay, I like it. Okay, all right, Zyke. All right, I gotta be careful.
Well,
there might be some. You know what? I should probably. I should probably not just say whatever it is I'm thinking. I should probably think before I speak because we are on live radio, and I don't want to say anything wrong, but I think Zyke is a great name for you. It's like Zeke. It's like Zeke, but Zyke. Yeah. Zeke and Zyke. I don't know.
I'd be called a lot worse. I'd be good with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to that a lot worse on the show at some point. But no. So we do know one of the key games in the first game of the season, and that is, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers raising the banner against the Cowboys. I had said yesterday, if this was a game at Jerry World, I feel like this would be a prime candidate for a Thursday night or a Thanksgiving Day game, Thursday game. But it's not. So it definitely fell into that category of possibilities of opening game of the season. I thought it might have been the Saints, maybe the Bills. I guess they went with the Cowboys. I misspoke a little bit yesterday. And for some reason, I was thinking that Dak Prescott was not going to be ready for the season opener. They seem to think he's on track to be. So one of the reasons why I thought the Dallas Cowboys game would be a little bit later in the season was to ensure that, of course, Dak Prescott would be under center when that happened. But of course, it seems like that's going to be the case. So. I like it. I mean, it's a pretty benign game. I mean, obviously, it's a conference game for each of them, so there is more value than an AFC NFC matchup. And we talked about it potentially being the Bills yesterday. But I like the matchup. Again, I would have probably preferred the Saints just because I do think that there is a lot of underlying stories there that the NFL and obviously the New Orleans and Tampa Bay media could really play up. But, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with this. And I think, obviously having the Super Bowl champions and quote unquote America's team headlining September 9th, I think is going to be pretty fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the biggest fan base in the country taking on the defending Super Bowl champions. It's hard to, argue with that. It's hard to argue the logic with it. And I do agree. We talked a little bit about Dak yesterday. You weren't the only one that was questioning whether or not he might be ready. I had my question marks myself. The more the day wore on, I did hear more from Cowboys camp that they're pretty much counting on him being ready, that he is on track and he should be ready to go right from the get-go of the season. This is a good matchup. It's a good matchup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a marquee matchup. A lot of eyes will be on it. Definitely a good way to hype it up. The Bucs and the Cowboys, I think, is a good NFC matchup, in and of itself. But you take under account that it is the start of the championship defending season for the Bucs. You take under account that this is for an opportunity to do that. I think that there's a lot that needs to happen. So look, bottom line, I'm liking the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for both teams to be able to open the season pretty big. Also, you look at some of the other marquee matchups. It'll start with the 1 o'clocks because CBS this morning, as you said, started their leaking process a bit early. Some of the matchups, excuse me, that are on my radar. Obviously, Pittsburgh and Buffalo, one that Patriots fans are going to be watching very closely. I think this could be a very good matchup. Watching the Buffalo Bills come out, seeing how they're going to attack this season. A couple of the others, the late window, Sunday games on 425. Denver against the Giants, that could be a bigger game than people are anticipating. If for any reason Aaron Rodgers ends up in Denver, that could take on a whole new life of its own. Green Bay and New Orleans, what's that going to look like if Rodgers is still there? What's going to happen there? That could end up being really fun.
It's going to look like the two teams that Brady and the Bucs went through to get to the Super Bowl is what it's going to look like.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And seeing that, and of course, Cleveland and Kansas City. A lot of people are saying that could be a precursor to. It could be a precursor to an AFC Championship game preview, and I think that's a little premature. But some of the fan bases are talking about that. Miami and New England in the afternoon as well. I'm psyched because that means that the Patriots are going to be going down to South Beach in December, likely, and that's. I'm sure the Patriots are excited about that.
Well, I've made a commitment to never go to a Patriots game in Miami ever again, and for good reason. And I'll give you those two reasons why. I've been to two in my life. First one I went to, Mike, was 2006. It was perhaps one of the worst games I've ever seen the Patriots play, ever. And that game was 21-0. And the best play that they had was a failed double pass that ended up being called back because I believe it technically went forward. And they went down to that in there and just got, turned. This was 2006. So eventually, how that season ended. They lost the AFC Championship game. I can't remember exactly if that had any sort of bearing on whether or not they hosted or, obviously they went to Indy that year. So I don't know if I can't remember what the exact standing were and how that worked, if that game determined whether or not they were hosting or going to Indy in that sense. But regardless, they lost that game and didn't go on to the Super Bowl. The other game I went to, 2015, Mike, 2015, or better known as the Steven Jackson game. And I say that because for some reason they were just determined to get Steven Jackson into the end zone. And I'll tell you, it was, all respected Steven Jackson. It was painful to watch because, he clearly wasn't the same guy anymore. He didn't have that extra burst that was really lacking from, that was really needed from for him to get those extra yardage that they right. wanted from him. Eventually, he did get into the end zone, but that was obviously that was whatever. At the end of the day, I was like, all right, great, finally they scored. But the biggest factor of this was it did have an impact on who hosted the AFC Championship that year. And as we know, that year the Patriots went into Denver to face Peyton Manning and the Broncos, and that was the Tom Brady got hit 20 some odd times, and they didn't have they just were not ready to beat that team. They lost by 2 points, partly because of a missed extra point attempt earlier in the game, and then just short on the 2-point conversion. So 2 times I've gone down to Miami. 2 times I've watched a miserable game from the Patriots and subsequently a loss. So I'm never going to a Patriots Miami game again, ever.
Well, on behalf of Patriots Nation, I think we all appreciate that, and we thank you for that, because obviously there's not a whole lot of great things that that happen when you're in South Beach. So hey, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But again, a few marquee matchups. When you look up and down at the leaked list, now that we know that CBS has essentially confirmed the first week of the 2021 NFL season. When you look at week 1 and you look at some of the matchups on this list, I know I mentioned a couple. I talked about maybe, Pittsburgh and Buffalo being a matchup that I'm going to keep my eye on. KC and Cleveland is another one. Obviously, the Green Bay, New Orleans, and the Denver and New York Giants could end up overlapping there. What are some of the matchups that you look at that could end up being intriguing in your opinion? Some that we've mentioned, maybe a couple that I haven't mentioned yet.
What, from week one?
From week one.
From week one. Okay. Well, I would say, I mean, you've already kind of, obviously, I have the connection with the Patriots. So I'm intrigued by the Patriots and Miami game. It seems like we get that every single year. But I think from a standpoint of, I want to see what this Patriots team looks like. I think Miami is going to be a good test for them. When it comes to hold on, I'm trying to bring up the full list of the week one games, because I did have it up here because I wanted to reference a couple of them. But yeah, when it comes to the Patriots, obviously it would be nice to see how they stand up against a team like Miami, which they're going to be in direct competition with. But also when week one, I like I believe you mentioned Pittsburgh at Buffalo. I know you were going and listening off a lot of those games. I had to go run around the corner real quick, so that's why my camera disappeared for a moment. San Francisco at Detroit. I mean, that's a pretty intriguing matchup. Obviously, you get Jared Goff making his debut with the Lions. San Francisco, presumably, Jimmy G will be back on the field for them starting that game. But it's a potential matchup of two teams that should be fairly competitive in the NFC. And obviously, we know Detroit is Detroit is a team that you're not necessarily talking about as a contender too often, but I do think that they have some nice pieces and can certainly play, at the very least, spoiler. Seattle, Indy, Carson Wentz making his Indianapolis debut. I think this team is a potentially pretty good quarterback season away from being a contender, and I'm talking about the Colts. This is a team that I think we saw last year with a very limited Phillip Rivers, really kind of compete down to the end. I mean, they were really in the thick of things and could have certainly gone on a bit of a run. Kind of ended a little bit for him, though. He lost his steam. I remember talking about it as the weeks went on. It was like, yeah, he was kind of starting to lose it a little bit, and what, he ended up retiring, and he had a really nice career. But and again, you've already mentioned Cleveland at Kansas City. I think that's going to be an intriguing matchup. Obviously, a rematch from the playoffs, and kind of a barometer for the Browns. I mean, this is the third season now. That first season, the expectations were so through the roof that it was almost easy money to bet on them to completely fail, and they did. Last year was obviously much better. Very intrigued, very interested to see where they go this season. And they start off against the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, and their revamped offensive line, my friend.
Absolutely. And the revamped offensive line that is hoping, or I guess Chiefs fans are hoping, that that's going to cure their woes that they had last year. It's definitely a good step in the right direction, no question about it. They needed some upgrades at the offensive line. They've done that. So this is going to be a big year for the Chiefs to prove that they still belong in that upper echelon conversation. Obviously, most believe they still do, but there's always a question mark, especially when you suffer a loss in the Super Bowl. How do you rebound from that? The great teams are able to take that, and they're able to use it, cultivate it, and turn it into something positive. Very few are able to do it. When you lose on the biggest stage like that, there is a hangover. Sometimes it's worse than winning it. When you talk about winning the Super Bowl and having that Super Bowl letdown, sometimes that loss can stick with you for a good long while. The Jets and the Panthers, not a lot on paper that may jump out at you, but look, this is, Sam Darnold 1.0 versus Sam Darnold 2.0 is what a lot of people are trying to say. When it comes to Zach Wilson taking the reins now with the New York Jets, Sam Darnold obviously looking like he's entrenched as the guy in Carolina. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. This is going to be a fun matchup, I think, obviously for Jets fans. They're going to, have an eye on this and watch how Wilson's able to play, how he's able to lead this team. Take a look at what Darnold can do in another uniform, and either play the what if game or the, thankfully this is what we've got now. That to me is sneaky, type intriguing for week one. I happened to notice that one this morning. I was like, that's a pretty good matchup. If you're a fan of the Jets or if you're a fan of the Panthers, this is a pretty intriguing one. An early Sunday matchup on the 12th.
Oh, absolutely. And we do know our London games too. I don't know if you saw that pop up as we were talking here, but we have the Jets and the Falcons, or Jets at the Falcons, and Dolphins at Jaguars. So the Jags, obviously, they're in London every year. So they're going to get a taste of Trevor Lawrence and Tim Tebow, tight end extraordinaire. Claire, I know, I'm not mocking tight ends. Don't get don't get angry at me. I'm not trying to do that. But two London games that meh. I mean, that's honestly my first reaction is eh.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's obvious reaction.
I mean, I don't know much about what the Jets are going to be this year. I don't know exactly if they're going to be a competitive team. I do like the direction they're going in, but I've seen all too often them not be a competitive team. So I see these two games as potential big stinkers for the NFL. But hey, it is kind of nice to see them going back to London. Obviously last year they canceled the games. There's obviously no fans, so there's really no point why go to all the way to London. I mean, you couldn't even travel anyway. I mean, forget about the whole travel restrictions. There was no reason to do that last year. So it is kind of nice to see them go back and obviously be able to get fans in the stands and all that. But we will have two London games, and like I said, I mean, it's all right, I guess. they're decent. But anyways. We do think we know, and you can correct me or confirm what I'm saying, but I do believe that most people have mentioned that you're looking at an early October Patriots-Bucs matchup, and it looks like week 4 is that date, and you know what? I'm kind of it makes sense to me if that's the case, because I did say week 6, so it's kind of right in that same range of games. I do think the NFL wants to give it its spotlight, so making it a Thanksgiving Day game in a way accomplishes that, but the other games also take away from that, so it's not necessarily in the spotlight exclusively. It's spotlight-ish. So I didn't think that was necessarily going to be an option. And then thinking logically, okay, how does this best suit the NFL? Well, obviously, if both teams are competitive, it's going to grab bigger. I mean, it's going to grab a bunch of viewers anyways. But more so if they're both competitive and still in the mix. And the way you ensure that is, well, you schedule the game fairly early in the season. And, that's not to say that I think that the Patriots are going to be bad. No, I actually think they're going to be pretty good. And I think Cam Newton's going to be pretty good this season. But guaranteed by week 4, they're still going to be in it. So I think this is a smart decision, or a good decision. And it'll be fun to get it out of the way. Now, the only problem is as I've told you off the air, I have a wedding I will be attending at the end of October. So now I'm trying to figure out, the best possible course of action for me so I can be up there at both moments. And that might mean an extended stay up in the Northeast.
Well, just remember, if the person getting married's last name is Drake, don't put any stock into it at all. Because these Drakes with the weddings and then football, it just never mixes well. No, all kidding aside, folks. No, look, the Patriots and the Bucs going at it, week 4, October 3rd, Sunday Night Football. This is, I think, a best case scenario for both teams. They give an opportunity to kind of get going, kind of see what both of these teams can do. An interesting note from Scott Zolak and our man Ryan Spagnoli of Pat's Pulpit just retweeted this out and put this in. Tom Brady currently trails Drew Brees by 1,154 yards for the all-time passing record. If he averages about 280, 290 yards a game, he has the chance to break this record in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium on October 3rd. Unless Brady goes off, in the first couple of weeks and does it early, this is right in that meaty part of the schedule that allows him to do it. Imagine him breaking this record at Gillette, where it all began. Really would be an amazing story and a great moment for him, because the fans at Gillette are going to give him his just due. They're going to give him all of the accolades that he deserves. It'd be a great story. It really, really would be a tremendously great story. But regardless, it's still going to be one of the highly rated games, for really, I think in the last, at least in the last decade, maybe, for a while in terms of regular season games. This is what these moments were created for. And the return of Tom Brady, let's not forget the return of Rob Gronkowski, the return of Antonio Brown. There are other storylines here as well, but obviously it is.
Return of Julian Edelman? No, I'm joking. No Julian Edelman.
No, that's going to be in 2022.
Yeah, right. Exactly. After he has a year off to heal. No, I actually think that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you know what, the NFL had to have been aware of that, and I think making that week 4, I think that's your best bet, because it is right in the wheelhouse of what he produces on a week-to-week basis, and that's a very reasonable thing to attain. Now, if you would have made it week 3, it could have still happened. But you would have had to have a really hot start to those, first couple of games of the season. With a week 4 game, I think you're almost very, very high chance that you're going to get this at that time. So I think that's a great storyline. And you know what? That's awesome. That makes this even more intriguing and more, just a lot of eyes on it. And, again, this isn't a back and forth anymore. I mean, once Brady has that, he's going to have it for a long time. And I know people want to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Well, he's got you really need to sit down and look at the numbers and look at the averages that he has to do over a very long, extended period of time. And you realize, wow, it's even in his case, it's really far off. So, yeah, that's definitely a thing I'm going to be looking for. Because back in the day, and you're just going to have to take my word for this. There's no Twitter at the time. I did predict that both Tom Brady and Randy Moss would break the single season touchdown mark, passing and receiving, on the same pass. Now, granted, I thought it was going to come long before week 17, because at the time that I said it looked like they were going to hit that mark in like week 12. Obviously, the second half of the season, there were moments where it slowed down a little bit production wise, but I was still right, and I hope I'm not. I didn't predict this, but I'm hoping this particular situation plays out the way it does, because I think that would be really cool, and I think that would be just a great moment to have that happen, because it'd be very unique if you think about it.
It would be. I mean, you can't think of another situation where your former face of the franchise, who really will always be the face of the franchise. I mean, let's face it, folks. You're going to think of the New England Patriots. You're going to think of Tom Brady. This in very similar ways. Like, the Yankees fans always think of Babe Ruth or Joe DiMaggio. I mean, even years after their death and years after they played, it's always going to continue to be the franchise that gave you this player. For him to be able to come back in the twilight of his career and be able to eclipse that record.
Is it the twilight, though? I mean,
you never know. I mean, you heard Jason
Light
yesterday say that he can play till he's 50 if he wants. And you know what? Everybody laughed at 45. Here he is on the doorstep of 45. He may be playing till he's 50. I'm not discounting anything.
I'm cool with it.
Tom Brady. But I'm good with it as well. I mean, you know what? Give it everything he has. He can have 3 Hall of Fame careers lined up. and go into being.
He kind of has it already. If you think about it. I mean,
it really is true.
Yeah. So,
it really is. But it would be an amazing story, and it's very realistic. I mean, you think about it. I mean, in terms of averaging about 280, 290, points per game over the course of the first 3 games, and getting into week 4, being able to do that with that offense and the way Brady is capable of spreading the ball around, you have to think that's not only possible, but at this point, I would say it's probable.
Well, he is how many yards short?
He is 1,157 yards short of the record right now.
I was going to say almost, if he averaged 283 yards a game.
1154. I'm sorry, not 1157. I cheated.
Still 1154. I was really hoping 28-3 would come into play here. But I was going to say if he averaged 283 yards per game, he would come to 1,132. So just a little bit short. So unfortunately, I cannot. Just a little short, as you know, Mike. Just, but yeah, just a little bit. But at least I was able to bring up 28-3. It just didn't work out the way I wanted to. Damage is done, though. No, I'm all for that. That would be fantastic. He obviously already owns the touchdown record. Anything he does next year is just icing on the cake. But this could really be a real clincher for him, when it comes to, just once again, I mean, just raising the bar higher and higher and higher and higher. And it's like, I would love to really get into the mind of the people who continue to deny what he has done and try to justify it and change the superlatives and change it's like, no, he's not the greatest, he's the luckiest, or he's the most accomplished, or he's the most least, I don't know. There's a bunch of them now. I can't even keep up with it all. I want to get into their mind. I want to know what they're really thinking, because deep down, I believe they sit back and they're like, I know I'm wrong, but I'm just going to die on this hill anyways. And honestly,
you got to double down. Yeah. You
So,
got to double down, and a lot of it comes from putting the cape on, giving the the whatever your team colors are, whether they're green and gold, whether they're red and gold, whether they're whatever colors they are, they're going to cape up for their guy, and that's basically it. And they're going to do anything they can to discredit Tom Brady. Look, you and I have said several times, one of the great things about being a Patriots fan all these years, and now being a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, for those of you that are, is that Brady has been the only constant in the last 2+ decades. I mean, everybody has kind of had their shot at Tom. They've taken their shot at Tom, whether it be Peyton Manning, or whether it be Ben Roethlisberger, or whether it be now Patrick Mahomes is in the mix, Aaron Rodgers. They've all taken their shot at Tom Brady, but Tom is the only constant. He's the only one that's been there throughout this entire 2+ run year decade. And I really, it surprises me that people will always look to give everything else the credit but what Tom Brady does on the field.
Mhm.
Oh, it's his defense. Oh, it's his kicker. Oh, it's this, it's that. Then we've heard it all. I mean, every conceivable reason why Brady could have had
he even
success.
made up one too. Like some people just I made up reasons. Yeah. I guess I saw some people out there completely lying about this is the big thing. It's like lately, the last couple of weeks, it feels like it's he has more wins by throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, because we all know that clearly that's the only indication of quarterback play is touchdowns and interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, folks. I'm if you can't see the sarcasm in my face, I hope you can hear it in my voice. But so it's silly the links people will go to, but we're talking about a guy who in the first third of the season is going to have the most passing. I mean, let me be clear. He already has the most touchdowns, the most yards, the most everything in the history of the NFL, because unlike crazies out there, I include the playoff numbers because they're games. In fact, They're probably harder games and more intense and more the stakes are higher and all that stuff. So they very much need to be included in all this. And if you do that, I mean, he is by far and away the biggest stat getter in the history of this game. Now, again, you can account for some inflation in numbers. Sure, absolutely. It's the era in which we play, but you don't. Inflation just doesn't make you throw 80,000 yards.
No,
like people act like a couple rule changes here and there will all of a sudden make you throw the most yards in the history of the game. And when I say most yards, I'm talking, realistically, there's. He's probably not going to get to 100,000 career yards, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to numbers, not just, a couple of good seasons here and there, but consistency over 20 years. It's absurd, but people will sit there and still say, he's just got rings. Well, he has more rings than fingers on his hand, and he's working on the second hand, completing that one.
And you ask anybody that's played this game, you ask any player that's ever put on a uniform, Do you want I really want that touchdown to interception ratio record. Boy, I tell you, that's the most important thing to me. There isn't a player that's ever played in the NFL that is going to tell you that they don't play for what Tom Brady has been able to do. Now, has he been the beneficiary of having great teams around him? Absolutely. But the great ones are the ones that elevate those teams.
Well, he's also part of the reason why they were great. And that's the disconnect people have.
They take good teams, great players take good teams, championship caliber teams, and make them championship teams. They're not just caliber teams at that point. You need someone that's going to be able to take that team to the next level. And only the greatest can do that. We've seen the greatest do that in professional sports time and time again. To say that Tom Brady is not in that discussion simply because it hurts your delicate sensibility that he has more championships or more success than your team doesn't make your argument any more correct.
At this point, Mike, the only person that could come close to rivaling. Thank you, Mike. Sometimes it just doesn't work. The only person that can come close to rivaling his ring count number is Jennifer Lopez, right? I mean, geez, at this point, she's only a couple short, but even then, it's like she's the only one that's close. The only one that's even close. So, that's what we're talking about here. Look, he's going to have this title for a while. I love talking to stupid people on Twitter because it makes my day. I love the game of watching them run around.
There are plenty of them.
There are. But I think this is going to be, again, I think this is going to be a fun season if you're a Tom Brady fan to watch, because that touch or the yards record is coming. He's going to get to play in New England. That there's a very good chance, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but there's a very good chance that he could end the season with his eighth Super Bowl championship. And again, that's something that it's almost like, if you're going to ask me now, would you bet for the Bucs or the field when it comes to winning the Super Bowl? And probably take the Bucs, because I don't care.
Argue. Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, and I know there are a lot of fans of a lot of different teams that'll argue that point, but it's hard to argue it. Look, bottom line, Tom Brady has had the success that he's had because of the experience that he's had in these games, but because of his ability to play in these games, his ability to raise his game to a level that allows him to be able to lead his team to a championship. Until someone proves that he can't do it, it's hard to bet against him. It's nearly impossible to bet against him. Good luck. Go ahead. You can do it. Yeah, you might be right, but more times than not, I mean, when he has the opportunity to win games and he has the opportunity to put teams away, he's going to win those games.
He shows no mercy, my friend.
No mercy. Absolutely.
Well,
he strikes first. He strikes hard. He shows no mercy.
That pretty much summed up the NFC Championship game. So we're obviously tomorrow going to have a chance to look at the complete schedule, because obviously tonight the whole thing will be released. But keep an eye out on at Full Press NFL and some of our team accounts for all the latest that happens to leak out throughout the day. And of course, we will try to bring it to you as much as possible, as good as possible tomorrow morning, as we kind of break down some of our favorite games even more. And who knows? Maybe talk some more Cobra Kai, and maybe Mike will be further into the outfit by tomorrow. So in the meantime, give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live, at Full Press Radio. I am at IGLEN31, and my man Mike is at MDAB Sweep the Leg ATEFPC. We'll see. Right.
But I like that.
I like that. We'll see you tomorrow morning, folks. Have a great day.